Welcome to Real Talk with LoukProp. Welcome everybody, this is Louis from LoukProp and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with LoukProp. Now with all these news going on about possible new cooling measures that might be coming up soon, I think it will be beneficial for our viewers out there who are thinking about buying a new home to have an overview of the current cooling measures that are in place right now and how they apply to you. So today we'll be talking about 4 major types of cooling measures which will directly impact your purchase. We will be dividing these 4 major cooling measures into 2 different types, and the first one we'll be talking about, this first type directly increases your cost of purchasing, right? Namely ABSD and SSD. We will be talking about what they mean a bit later on. Right? The second type prevents you from over leveraging on your property purchase. Right? These are Tdsr and LTV. Right? So let's go. So the first thing we'll be talking about today is ABSD, which is Additional Buyer Stamp Duty. Now before that, let's go through the standard buyer stamp duty that everybody has to pay when buying a property. So buyer stamp duty is actually a tax imposed on any property purchases in Singapore based on the purchase price or market value, whichever is higher. Right? So this is the chart that shows you how to calculate buyer stamp duty, right? But if this is too complicated for you, a simple formula would be this. Now, any purchases that is below $1 million, alright, will be 3% minus 5,400. Any purchases above $1 million, you take the purchase price multiplied by 4% minus 15,400. But more importantly, we'll be talking about the Additional Buyer's Stamp Duty, ABSD. Now, this was introduced back in 2011 and it has been through several iterations and changes over the years. Latest change being on 5th July 2018, whereby they actually increased by 5% for anybody that's buying more than one property and for foreigners as well. If you want to know the full ABSD rates, you can take a look at this table. Right. For example, today if you have already one property that you own, you're a Singaporean citizen, and you want to buy your second property, right, your ABSD rates would be 12%. Right? So this will impact you greatly today if you are really thinking about buying multiple properties or even just buying your second property. So now let's talk about Seller Stamp Duty, SSD. Now what is a Seller Stamp Duty? It is basically a tax that is imposed on a property seller if they were to sell their property within a 3-year holding period. Now, why did the government introduce this thing called Seller Stamp Duty? Right. Basically, it is to curb speculative investors, because in the past, there were people that bought a property one day and sold it the next day at a profit. So the government basically wanted to weed out all these speculative type of investors that want to just flip an option or flip a purchase. If you're talking about seller stamp duty, you can just take a look at this table, right, to know the rates for a seller stamp duty. Now basically what we want to know is this, that every year that you keep your property, right, your seller stamp duty rates fall by 4% every year, which is the reason why if you were to keep your property for more than 3 years, right, basically you're paying 0% seller stamp duty on the sale of your property. Next, let's talk about Total Debt Servicing Ratio, TDSR. Now, what is TDSR? Right, basically, TDSR refers to the portion of a borrower's gross monthly income that goes towards paying the monthly debt obligations, including the loan being applied for. So, TDSR has to be kept within or at 60% of your gross monthly income. Alright, for anybody that's buying a HDB or an EC, alright, you are subjected to a more stringent one, which is called Mortgage Servicing Ratio, MSR. Now what is it? It's actually the portion of a borrower's gross monthly income that goes towards paying just the property loans, including the one that you're applying for. Right? So for MSR, you have to keep it at or below 30% of your gross monthly income. Right? So how do these debt servicing ratios apply to you? Right, so things like TDSR and MSR, they actually directly impact the maximum loan that you're eligible for. Right, factoring in things like 3.5% interest rate, your maximum loan tenure calculated by the income weighted average age, you will be able to get your maximum loan eligibility. Right, if you're confused about all of this, don't worry. You can either contact a banker, a mortgage broker, or you can contact us and we can give you a quick assessment of the maximum loan eligibility for you in your property purchase. Okay, next thing we have to discuss, why does the government introduce these kind of debt servicing ratios? Basically, they are out there to help you to keep prudent when you're actually buying your property purchase, to prevent you from over leveraging when you're actually borrowing for a property purchase. Lastly, let's talk about LTV, which is the loan to value ratio. Now what is it? It basically is the maximum percentage of the purchase price or value that you are allowed to borrow. So for example, if you're taking a HDB loan, the max that you can borrow is up to 90% of the purchase price. For bank loans, you're able to borrow maximum up to 75% of the purchase price. So LTV limits have actually been updated and changed since 2018, right? Last time the maximum loan you can take for a bank loan is easily 80%, but they have reduced it down to 75%. However, LTV limits also vary according to how many outstanding housing loans the borrower currently has. Right? For the full spectrum of LTV limits, you can take a look at this table. Now, if you notice, for the LTV limits column, there are two different types. For example, the first column, there's 75% or 55%. So how do you read this? Basically, you apply the lower LTV limit, right, if the loan tenure exceeds 30 years or the loan period extends past the borrower's age of 65 years old. Next, if you were to take a look at the last column, the minimum cash down payment column, right, what this basically says is that depending on how much outstanding loan a borrower has, not only does it affect the maximum LTV that you're eligible for, it also means that you have to pay a larger minimum cash down payment on your property purchase. So why is this important? Because it directly affects the amount of cash that you have to put up for your property. So hope you have a better understanding of the major cooling measures that are in Singapore right now and how they apply to you. Now in the next episode, we will be discussing the speculation of new cooling measures that may be coming up and how it may affect you. Right? So see you in the next episode. Bye!